Chapter 1 Sainya Darshana, Observing the Armies on the Battlefield. Verse 1. Addressing Sanjaya, Emperor Dhritarashtra said, after assembling with great enthusiasm for battle at the holy place of Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? Verse 2. Sanjaya replied, O Emperor, at that time your son Duryodhana, after observing the military arrangements of the Pandavas, approached his mentor Drona and spoke as follows. Verse 3. Behold, O great teacher, the military formation of the army of the sons of Pandu, arranged by your gifted student, Dristadumna, the son of Drupada. Verse 4. Within those ranks are great archers who are equal to Bhima and Arjuna in war, such as Satyaki, Virata, and the powerful charioteer Drupada. Verse 5. Great heroes such as Dristaketu, Chaitanya, the heroic king of Kashi, Purujit, Kuntibhoja, and Shaibya are also present. Verse 6. The chivalrous Yudamanyu, the courageous Uttamauja, Abhimanyu the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi are indeed all mighty chariot warriors. Verse 7. However, O best of the Brahmanas, you should also know who amongst my army is qualified to lead our military force. Just for your information, I shall name them. Verse 8. Your good self, as well as Bhishma, Karna, and Kripa, are always victorious in battle, as well as Ashvatthama, Vikarna, Bhurishrava, and Jayadratha. Verse 9. They are all armed with various weapons, and they are expert in the art of war. All of them are prepared to give up their very lives for my sake, as are many other warriors. Verse 10. Our army, protected by the might of Bhishma, is unlimited. However, the strength of the opposition, protected by Bhima, is insufficient. Verse 11. You must support and protect Bhishma at all costs, at the strategic points of our battle formation. Anuvriti. War is nothing new to this world. Thousands of years ago, wars were being fought, such as the one at Kurukshetra, to resolve the differences between good and evil and for the purpose of material gain. From ancient times to our modern era, practically not a day on this earth has passed when someone, somewhere, was not fighting over something. Throughout history, men have gathered on the field of battle to fulfill their greed for wealth and glory, sometimes nobly, but more often ignobly. The same is happening in the 21st century. War, it seems, is an unavoidable karmic destiny of human civilization. Peace, on the other hand, is rather elusive. Peace is talked about and even prayed for, but seldom makes more than a momentary appearance. Most of our lives, even for the humblest of souls, are spent struggling for existence, either socially, politically, financially, mentally, or physically. For most of us, the temporary absence of any major crisis is what we would call peace. However, peace, or shanti as it is known amongst yogis, is a state of consciousness and not a condition relative to the external affairs of this material world. Peace is an internal experience. The wisdom of the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, says, Jivo jivasya jivanam. One living being is food for another living being. From the minutest forms of life to the most complex, one life is sustained by the loss of another. Thus, the basic principle for material existence is fundamentally flawed with violence. Peace, then, for most of us, comes in doing what we have to do and believing that we've done the right thing. Therein lies the fine line between war and peace. Is what we think to be good, or what we are conditioned to believe, actually right? The ability to discriminate between right and wrong, or in some cases good and evil, largely depends on the extent of knowledge from which we draw our conclusions. A poor fund of knowledge naturally results in faulty conclusions. Therefore, it is in our best interest to seek out the greatest source of knowledge, knowledge of the absolute truth, and familiarize ourselves with that. Bhagavad Gita is perhaps the most widely read book of theistic knowledge in the world. Whatever knowledge one finds in similar books, such as the Dhammapad, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, etc., is also found in the Bhagavad Gita. But in the Bhagavad Gita, one will find knowledge that is not present anywhere else. Consequently, the Bhagavad Gita surpasses all branches of knowledge. What lies ahead in these commentaries is a look into the vastness of the knowledge of the absolute truth contained in the Bhagavad Gita. Verse 12. Then Bhishma, the fearless grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, roaring like a lion, blew his conch loudly to increase the euphoria of Duryodhana. Verse 13. At that point, conches, trumpets, bugles, drums, and horns suddenly sounded all at once, and the combined sound rose up like thunder. Verse 14. On the other side of the battlefield, both Sri Krishna, the husband of the goddess of wealth, and Arjuna, sitting on a wonderful chariot yoked with horses of fair hue, blew their divine conches. Verse 15. Sri Krishna, the master of the senses, blew his conch shell called Panchajanya. Arjuna, the winner of great wealth, blew his conch shell called Devadatta. Bhima, the performer of great feats, blew his conch shell, Paundra. Verses 16 through 18. Yudhishthir, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell Anantavijay. Nakula and Sahadev blew their conches called Sugosha and Manipushpaka. O Emperor, the great archer, the king of Kashi, the expert chariot warrior Shikandi, Dristadumna, Virata, the invincible Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and Abhimanyu, the mighty son of Subhadra, all blew their conches. Verse 19. The hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra were shattered as the tumultuous sound reverberated throughout the sky and on the land. Anuvriti. At the outset of the Kurukshetra war, Duryodhana made the classic military blunder of underestimating the strength of his adversary. Possibly blinded by his greed for the kingdom, or by his long-standing hatred for his cousins, the Pandavas, he entered the engagement thinking that his enemy's strength was limited. Hate and greed are certainly poor allies of judgment, usually resulting in wrong decisions and the senseless loss of life. No better examples in modern times need be cited than that of the wars in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan, wherein underestimating the will of a people has led to the loss of millions of innocent lives. The classic commentators on Bhagavad Gita have all pointed out the blunder of Duryodhana at Kurukshetra. Particularly, it has been mentioned that Duryodhana failed to recognize that when Sri Krishna, the Supreme Person, was there to advise Arjuna, that Arjuna would be a most formidable opponent. History has shown us that wars are fought out of greed, hatred, or religious prejudice. It is simply a convenience to think that God is on our side. The idea that God is on our side is certainly a comforting thought, and has accompanied men into almost every war that we know of since the rise of Abrahamic religions. However, the problem has always been that in all these conflicts, both sides assumed the banner of righteousness, declaring God wills it. This is sometimes called the theology of convenience. Even today, it makes good to stir up the troops or rally the suicide bombers to their deaths by declaring that God favors our cause. It is in fact that during these dark periods of history, more people have died and more innocent people put to death in the name of God than by any other single unnatural cause. Many people consider despotic political regimes as the ultimate empires of cruelty. But the truth is that religious fanaticism has brought far more unnecessary death to the world than any political system of government. So what makes the war at Kurukshetra any different than modern wars fought for greed or between religious fanatics? Is it not simply jingoism to say that because Sri Krishna, the Supreme Person, was on the side of the Pandavas, that they were correct in destroying their enemies? The difference is that Kurukshetra was not fought because one side had a different religious ideology than the other. Kurukshetra was a fratricidal war, a family feud brought on by human faults, greed for sovereignty, failure in duty, envy, family attachment, and falsely identifying the body as the self. But unlike any other war in history, Kurukshetra would record a profound lesson for the benefit of all future generations. The lesson was taught by Sri Krishna in the form of Bhagavad Gita, a lesson that would enable humanity to overcome its mundane shortcomings, become established in transcendence, and attain self-realization. Verse 20. Speaking to Dhritarashtra, Sanjaya said, "O Emperor, just as the war was about to commence, Arjuna, whose chariot was decorated with the banner of Hanuman, observing your sons poised for battle, took up his bow and spoke to Rishikesh, Sri Krishna, the master of the senses, as follows." Verses 21 and 22. Arjuna said, "O Achyuta, infallible one, place my chariot between both armies, so that I may look upon the soldiers that I must do battle with." Verse 23. Let me see all those warriors that are dear to Duryodhana, the wicked son of Dhritarashtra, assembled here for this battle. Verse 24. Sanjaya continued, "O descendant of Bharat, being thus requested, Sri Krishna drew Arjuna's grand chariot between both armies." Verse 25. In front of Bhishma, Drona, and all the leaders of the world, Sri Krishna said, "O Partha, Arjuna, son of Pritha, behold the Kaurava dynasty assembled here." Verse 26. There, between the two armies, Arjuna was able to observe fatherly elders, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, fathers-in-law, and friends. Verse 27. Seeing all his relatives before him on the battlefield, Arjuna, the son of Kunti, became overcome with pity and was grief-stricken. Verse 28. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, seeing all my relatives assembled here and preparing for battle, the strength drains from my limbs and my mouth becomes parched." Anuvriti. Sri Krishna is known as Parthasarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Because Krishna was Arjuna's friend and companion, he requested Krishna to draw his chariot between the two armies so that he could see with whom he was to do battle. But upon seeing the enemy before him, Arjuna was shocked and fell into a state of bewilderment. Now the stage at Kurukshetra was set, so that Sri Krishna could speak Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna became overwhelmed with grief and gave up his duty. As a warrior, Arjuna was duty-bound to fight, but seeing the ordeal that lay ahead, he could not proceed. The world is certainly full of faults, dangers, unfortunate events, cruel and hateful designs to exploit others, and a host of other qualities that one would certainly describe as evil. To quote Edmund Burke, the Irish statesman and philosopher, "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to stand by and do nothing." Arjuna had resolved in his mind not to fight, knowing that the destruction of the dynasty meant the loss of tradition, the onslaught of degradation, the birth of unwanted children, etc., and thus evil would be the only outcome. Arjuna also understood deep within himself that to do nothing also assured grim repercussions. Verse 29. My body trembles, my hair stands on end, my skin burns, and my Gandiva bow slips from my grasp. Verse 30. O Krishna, O Keshava, killer of the Keshi demon, I cannot keep my composure. My mind is bewildered, and I see evil omens. Verse 31. O Krishna, I see no benefit in slaying my kinsmen in this battle. Neither do I desire victory, nor happiness by attaining a great kingdom. Verses 32 through 34. O Govinda, Krishna, of what avail to us are kingdoms, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? Of what use is a kingdom and its pleasures, if those for whom we desire all this, our teachers, elders, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives that are present here on this battlefield, are ready to jeopardize their kingdom and their lives in this battle? O Madhusudana, killer of the Madhu demon, even if they wish to slay me, I have no desire to slay them. Verse 35. O Janardana, maintainer of all living beings, what to speak of ruling this world? Even if we gained sovereignty over the three worlds, what happiness would be attained by killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Verse 36. O Madhava, husband of the goddess of fortune, great misfortune will surely come upon us if we kill our relatives, though they may be hostile towards us. It is not proper to slay the sons of Dhritarashtra as well as our friends. What happiness will be derived from killing our own kin? Verses 37 and 38. O Janardana, although the hearts of these men are overwhelmed by greed, and they cannot see the fault in betraying one's friends and the offense of murdering one's kinsmen, why should we engage in such a terrible activity, knowing well the consequences? Verse 39. By destroying one's relatives, the family traditions are vanquished forever, and when such practices perish, unrighteousness prevails over the entire dynasty. Verse 40. O Krishna, descendant of Vrishni, when unrighteousness prevails, then the women of the family become degraded. When the women become degraded, then undesirable offspring is the result. Verse 41. Undesirable offspring create a dreadful condition for both the family and the destroyer of family values. Their forefathers fall down due to the discontinuation of ceremonial libations of food and water. Verse 42. Such terrible deeds by the destroyers of the family create a population of unwanted progeny that totally annihilates all traditions of family and society. Verse 43. O Janardana, I have heard that those who destroy familial, social, and spiritual values eternally reside in wretched conditions. Verse 44. Alas, what wickedness we are determined to commit! Simply due to our greed to enjoy royal pleasures, we are prepared to kill our own relatives. Verse 45. If the sons of Dhritarashtra with weapons in their hands slay me unarmed and unresisting on this battlefield, that would be considered better by me. Verse 46. Sanjaya said, having thus spoken these words, Arjuna cast aside his bow and arrows and sat on the chariot, his heart heavy with sorrow. Anuvriti. Figuratively speaking, we would say that Arjuna was caught between a hard spot and a rock. Therefore, Arjuna intelligently approached Sri Krishna and appealed for his intervention. Knowing that Sri Krishna was the absolute truth, complete with all opulence and knowledge, Arjuna approached Sri Krishna, addressing him as Rishikesh, master of the senses, as Achyuta, the infallible, as Keshava, the killer of the Keshi demon, as Govinda, one who pleases the senses, as Madhusudana, the killer of the Madhu demon, as Janardana, the maintainer of all living beings, as Madhava, the husband of the goddess of fortune, and as Varshneya, the descendant of the Vrishni dynasty. Arjuna addressed Sri Krishna by his different names in order to invoke Krishna's mercy and compassion for the predicament that Arjuna was in. As Rishikesh, Krishna is master of the mind and senses. Thus he is never bewildered or put into illusion. As Achyuta, he is incapable of making mistakes or wrong decisions. Arjuna needed Krishna's advice urgently, advice that he could depend on, that would give relief to his disturbed mind and senses. As Keshava, Krishna is the killer of the demon Keshi who represents the false sense of greatness. Sri Krishna is known to have killed numerous demons during his advent, and each of those demons represented negative qualities that hinder one's progress in spiritual life, such as the desire for name and fame, dishonesty, false pride, deceitfulness, cruelty, foolishness, violence, lust, anger, greed, false teachings and bad habits, etc. Arjuna was confident that by taking shelter of Sri Krishna, all that was an impediment to his situation would be removed. By addressing Krishna as the descendant of the Vrishni dynasty, Arjuna was also reminding Krishna of the importance of family traditions, and to destroy them was Arjuna's biggest dilemma. Om Tat Sat. Thus ends Chapter 1, entitled Sainya Darshana, from the conversation between Sri Krishna and Arjuna in the Upanishad known as Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Shastra of divine knowledge, from the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata, the literature revealed by Vyas in 100,000 verses.